I'm aware that in the previous episode it sounded like I was complaining a little bit, but I want to clarify that because I actually realized very quickly it sounds like I'm just complaining. I'm not complaining about the fact that life sucks, life's a drag, suffering. Well, that's some fucking bullshit, right? That life is bullshit. That's not what I was trying to say. So let me try and clarify a little bit more. I was trying to say that, of course, I'm not saying this. This is what other people have said, and I agree with this. But you need suffering in life. That you need to suffer to get stuff. You can't have a life without suffering, really. But when you do suffer, you want to get something back from it that makes the suffering worthwhile. And now, the key word being here, worthwhile. What I'm saying is, a lot of what I'm doing doesn't feel worthwhile. And I feel like a lot of people are in this position as well. And my purpose in the previous video was to try and make a dialogue where it sort of opens up the gates of thought processing that allow for ways to discover ways in which things can feel more worthwhile. So what does make things feel worthwhile? Well, from an evolutionary perspective, anything that improves your chance of, getting offspring, your chances of survival, your increasing your health, you know, biological things that having kids and being healthy, living longer, and protecting your kids, those kind of things are worthwhile things to do. And if you suffer in the process of, say, for example, finding having a child, or finding somebody is a difficult process. There's a lot of suffering involved in relationships, but it's worthwhile because you have you make a child out of it. And then when you've got a child, raising the child, making sure that they do well, if you suffer, it's worthwhile in the end. I mean, like that's a bold statement to make. I think there are a lot of people who disagree, but those people probably have raised somebody who they feel is like Hitler or is not what they wanted. But I feel like if you hate your kids, if you're a parent and you hate your offspring, you're kind of a shit parent. I don't know. That just seems to be my perspective, is that it's kind of, as a parent, it's your responsibility to like your kids, and if you don't like something about them, it's, as long as it's not just an arbitrary thing. If it's something like, for example, if your kid is a criminal and you don't like that about them, it's kind of your responsibility to try and make them not be a criminal. And if you make them not be a criminal, then maybe you like them more. That's a suggestion. It's not anything specific. In my specific case, my experience with parenting is that I've never been a parent, but I have had parents. I still do, I guess, because they're not dead. Examples there would be, for 20 years of your life, your parents go to work, make money, and then they spend money on a house and a room that you live in. They buy you clothes and your food, and they make it so that you have a higher quality of life. So, from that perspective, their suffering becomes worthwhile in their mind if they care about your happiness and success. So, for example, my mum works like way harder than she should have to, but for me and my brother, not me at the moment because I'm living independently, but in the past at least, she would say that even though she's not progressing like in terms of a career path, or she's like losing the money as soon as she gets it, she's making just enough money to pay rent and make a good life for her kids, it becomes worthwhile because she gets to see her kids happy and grow up. And as a parent, I think that's one thing. But then, would being a parent be the only thing that makes life worthwhile? So going back to this, what can you actually do to make your suffering worthwhile? So like I said, I feel on a daily basis like life is kind of sucky. But it would be worthwhile if the suffering would get something back out of it, but I'm not. And you don't have to necessarily be the one to get back what you suffer for. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you, this is the cliche example, but it's a good one. If you spend like 20 years of your life working really hard, and you cure cancer cure, but you don't have cancer, it's still worthwhile because you've just saved like loads and loads of people's lives, and that's a good thing. It's good, so it's worthwhile. Similarly with most discoveries that don't help you, or just helping people around you that isn't helping you, but it's helping them, that's worthwhile. From a more personal perspective, what feels worthwhile to you usually would be stuff that gets you money or that gives you happiness. So you at least want the work that you're doing to give something back. That's if you're doing work. If you're not even doing work and you're just suffering needlessly, it's like, what are you getting out of it? It's like, of course you're miserable if you're not getting anything in return. If the suffering is not worthwhile, then of course that's what I think. That's what makes people want to die, is that they're. And when I say suffering, I don't mean like actual like concentration camp kind of level of suffering, or like forced labor camps. You know what I mean? Just that kind of suffering, or being tortured. I just mean doing anything where you don't feel like your time is being spent worthwhile makes you think, everything's meaningless. And that's kind of depressing. But then you think, it's not depressing because nothing matters. That's wonderful. That's one approach that I've taken for a long time, but it's just wearing thin, because it's like I want to have responsibilities, but not ones that don't feel worthwhile. So like for university, which I'm done with now, while you're in university, assuming your degree is good, you can feel like, oh yeah, well, the work that I'm doing for university is worthwhile because at the end of it I'll get a degree and then progress my life in the direction I want to do, learn the things I want to be learning, and get a job doing stuff. It feels worthwhile if you're doing a good degree. If you're doing a shit degree, if you're doing something that just is not interesting and has no career prospects afterwards, it doesn't educate you in any way whatsoever, like the degree I was doing, even though you've got responsibility and you have to do the work, it doesn't feel worthwhile and you don't feel fulfilled doing it. So you're suffering, and I don't know the word suffering because it's very variable, but you're putting yourself through a lot of stress and a lot of effort for nothing in return, really. And that doesn't feel worthwhile. So a long time of doing that doesn't feel good, and it's very difficult to get back into the swing of finding things that you actually want to care about, and that actually give you a sense of responsibility. Like I said, I'm fine. Having kids, but fuck that. I'd say that's a really great example, but you need to be in the right financial, and this is a time and a place for having kids, and obviously it's not something you just do just so you've got something to do. That's a shit thing, so just scratch that off the list immediately. What do you do to get responsibility? Have a job, right? Well, would your job feel worthwhile? Like, let's just say you can't get a job that you enjoy doing. You get a job doing something that's shit, but you get money for it. Is it worthwhile? Well, the money allows you to survive, and if you survive, then that makes it worthwhile, right? But a life of just living to stay alive does not feel fulfilling, and it makes your time not feel worthwhile. Similarly, a life where you're not doing anything that makes you feel meaningfully engaged is also not a great life. I'm still struggling to find anything that fits to those patterns and lifestyle But that was just my clarification for the previous episode. I didn't mean to clarify for 10 minutes because I went off topic a lot. But all I was saying is I'm not complaining, I'm just saying and bringing attention to the fact that it's very difficult. I personally haven't figured anything out yet, and I don't see how a lot of people in this position are able to do so. I feel like it's just the process of you got to think for a while and then find something and then you'll know what to do. Like, I came to almost a conclusion in the previous episode, which would work for me personally, which would be just drink a load of coffee and get some noise cancelling earphones and then just write or program a game or something like that, do something like that. And it doesn't matter if you're not in the mood for it, because that's what the coffee was for. But I don't know. I just it doesn't feel too meaningfully engaging to be doing that. And I don't have enough experience to know what else there is to do in life. I just making videos like this does feel meaningfully engaging, but a lot of the time I do find myself going around in circles, you see. I'm just looping back on things I've already said, saying them over and over again, repeating myself, trying to find a new way out, trying to think that if I say it one more time, it'll click in my head and I'll go somewhere new. Now, that's what I'm trying to do in life across all walks, but it isn't working, not quite. So I'm going to have to think of something else to do. In the meantime, thanks for watching.